Hello again. This is week 2 of AI, Robots, and Ethics, and we are getting into the final phase of the introductory material, and we'll have 2 readings for this week. So I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be reading and what you should be doing with it as you move through the material and work with it. So last week, what we did is really give you the lay of the land. Looked at why robots and AI happen to be very important right now, and why the moral questions regarding artificial intelligence and social robotics and algorithms and all these other autonomous systems are starting to become a real concern for not only engineers, but also especially for philosophers and moral philosophers in particular. So we read Sue Halpern's How Robots Are Taking Over, which really looks at how automation is really occurring currently. I like to say to my students when I talk to them about this is that the robot invasion that we were promised in science fiction is here. It's now. We're already living in the robot invasion. It just doesn't look like the ones we have in science fiction with the spaceships and the robots descending from the heavens, but it rather is bubbling up from the bottom, right? We're using robots to take over all kinds of things, financial transactions, recommending books and movies and songs to ourselves, running our transportation systems, etc. Because of this, we are now facing some new moral crises, some new moral problems. And this has to do with the decision making of these systems and the way in which they really interact with our sense of moral right and wrong and our traditional sense of ethics. And so the introduction you read from my book, The Machine Question, tries to lay out really kind of what are the moral quandaries, the moral dilemmas that we're going to have to confront and deal with as we have increasingly autonomous machines living among us in our social environment. So for week 2, I want to continue this sort of introductory mode of things, and I want to look at how we normally think about technology and the way in which these new devices, these autonomous systems, these algorithms, these social robots, etc., either fit with or don't fit with our usual way of understanding technology. So normally, when we think about technology, we employ a manner of thinking that Heidegger called the instrumental theory of technology. The instrumental theory of technology is that idea that technology means nothing by itself. It's neutral. Technology is really dependent on how we use it. So if something goes wrong, it's the human operator who's at fault. If something goes right, it's the human decision maker that is the individual who should be credited with what has gone right, or in the case of something going wrong, should be criticized for something going wrong. So that this idea is that technology is a tool, an instrument that we use for good or bad, depending on what we decide to do. As we get into advanced computer systems that are more and more autonomous, that can do more and more decision making on their own, that have learning algorithms built into them where they can learn new behaviors that were not originally programmed into them, and as we develop sophisticated forms of AI and social robotics that really reside with us and interact with us in a very social, communicative way that is much broader and much more social than we normally expect from our mechanisms, we are straining against this instrumental theory of technology. In other words, the instrumental theory of technology works, and it's worked for a very long time for us. It works for airplanes, it works for calculators, it works for automobiles. But as you get into these more sophisticated forms of technology, the instrumental theory seems to be straining against its own limits. And so what I want to do for the second week is look at the way in which the instrumental theory is being strained, and to look at some of the responses that have been made in order to either work beyond the instrumental theory or to work within the instrumental theory and to recalibrate it for this new technological era that we're in currently. So we have 2 readings. The first reading is one from Deborah Johnson called Computer Systems. It is an attempt to rescue, if I can use that word, the instrumental theory of technology by saying that technology, even though it's more and more sophisticated, always is neutral. It can play a role in the world of moral decision making and moral action, but when push comes to shove, it's the human being that is responsible or not for the way the technology is utilized. So she's going to make a very strong case for our redeployment of the instrumental theory. She'll modify it a bit, but the modification is meant to accommodate these new technologies to the instrumental theory and give us a way of sort of rehabilitating instrumentalism for the era of autonomous systems and artificial intelligence. The second reading is a reading from J. Storrs Hall called Ethics for Machines. This is probably the foundational text where someone said, hey, wait a minute. Maybe technology is not just an instrument. Maybe we've got to start to think about our technologies, our computers, our algorithms, our autonomous systems as being more than just tools. Maybe there is a way in which we should hold the technology somewhat accountable for decision making that occurs autonomously. Maybe there is a way in which we should hold the technology responsible for decisions that go well or go poorly, especially as they impact our social world and human individuals. So J. Storrs Hall is going to push in the opposite direction. Whereas Deborah Johnson is going to try to rehabilitate the instrumental theory, J. Storrs Hall is going to say, you know, maybe it's time we start to think beyond instrumentalism. Maybe it's time we start to think about not only machine responsibility, but even machine rights. And he will open a door that we're going to walk through in the remainder of the class, because Johnson wants to keep us back in the world of the instrumental theory, which has, been working for about 2,000 years or more. Storrs Hall is going to sort of throw the door open and say, maybe we've got to think beyond that. Maybe there's an effort here and a need here to begin to think about our machines otherwise. And so I would say start with the Johnson piece, read that because it's a very strongly put argument for rescuing instrumentalism, and then look at the J. Storrs Hall Ethics for Machines, because his little essay really initiated a lot of the thinking that we are going to be engaging after this week and into the remainder of the course. So that's all I have. I don't know if you saw, but I posted some things on the Facebook page regarding some recent innovations with the question of morality in machines. I'll continue to do this. These are not necessary readings. These are supplemental readings. But my hope is by giving you these little pieces on Facebook, you can sort of connect the dots to some more recent innovations and sort of see some examples in more sort of popular forms of writing that connect to the philosophical stuff we're doing in class. So that's all I have. Have a good week. Enjoy the readings. And remember, I've given you questions to respond to, and those questions are also available on the course calendar. Thanks. See you later. Bye.